Welcome, dear audience. Today, we have a very exciting opportunity to sit down with a gentleman who managed to be best in faction with Chaos Knights at the Edinburgh Super Major. If you could all put a warm hand together for a Mivan Studios. Hi, hello. Thanks for having me. It's Mevin Studios, actually. Oh, my apologies. It's just on the page here, it's written down like a first and a last name. Dude, why would that be my name? One of the words is completely made up, and the other word is very obviously studios. Well, I don't know. Perhaps it's French. Anyways, we're going to have a very exciting chat with... No, sorry, if I could. No, I'm sorry, all the way on this show, you can't even get my name right. Interview I expect you to do a little come here for nothing, here, and I expected a bit... The Edinburgh Super Major was my first ever event of this size. The biggest events I've typically done before are 40-player 2-day GTs. So this is my first ever Super Major. I believe there was 240-ish players going to this one. And overall, I had just an amazing time. It was honestly one of the best events I've ever been to. So you might be wondering, Mevin, if you did so well at this Super Major, how come I haven't heard anything about it? How come I always keep hearing that no one is doing very well on Chaos Knights? And to that I say, it's because I didn't do that amazing either. What basically has happened here is at the Edinburgh Super Major, there was, I believe, 5 Chaos Knight players. Most of them finished either 2 and 3 or 1 and 4. I was the only one that managed to break out a little bit further and finish 3 wins and 2 losses. This whole Best in Faction Chaos Knights thing is incredibly unofficial. This was a UKTZ event, so there was no trophy or anything. There was no award for Best in Faction for specific factions, and I certainly was not Best in Faction for Chaos overall. I simply just managed to be the best placing out of 5 individual folk. Overall at the event, I actually placed 66th out of the entire event in the whole, which I believe puts me just shy of top 30%. This obviously isn't the most impressive result ever. When you hear all these videos at how I won this GT, how I won this RTT, it's outshone by a lot of those, but this was really big for me. I went to this event mostly just hoping to have a bit of fun, really. Having never done a Super Major before, I had no idea what to expect, I didn't know what to get into, and I didn't want to get my hopes up. So when discussing this event with a few friends who I knew were also going to this event, I kind of set my standards as I would like 1 win, and that's all. If I lose my first 4 games and I win in game 5, I'll be happy, I'm mostly just going for the experience of being at a Super Major. As the games got rolling though, and I managed to lose my first game, and then win the next 3, and then lose my final game, I was incredibly happy with how I ended up performing. This event was completely stacked with some really good players. Most of the top players in Scotland were going to this one. A lot of good players from England also traveled up. So if the event was a complete Shark Tank, so to get the result that I did is something I'm really proud of. In terms of the list that I ended up bringing, it is Traitoris Lance with Iconoclast Fiefdom as my 2 detachments, with the disposition I'm playing was Purge the Foe. In terms of units that I brought a Knight Lancer, 2 Knight Abominants, I brought 2 Knight Carnivores, 2 Brigands, a War Dog Executioner, and then 3 units of 10 Cultists. The idea behind this list, I built it kind of just when 11th edition was coming out, and I really wanted to play into the idea that Battle Shock is obviously a lot better now. Obviously, this plays really nicely with Traitoris Lance. Getting more abilities on your table, playing a lot better with Battle Shock, means that forcing more Battle Shocks is a lot more impactful. So this, in combination with the 2 Abominants, was kind of the crux of the list to begin with. The Lancer here is kind of just doing what the Lancer always does. He's a big old beat stick, he's a very threatening piece for the opponent to try and remove. And in combination with Traitoris Lance and Iconoclast Fiefdom, you can make him really tanky, which again was the kind of secondary purpose of this list. For the War Dogs, 2 Carnivores, an Executioner and 2 Brigands, kind of just a pretty even spread. The other thing here obviously being the 30 Cultists. The way the Cultists were used is that one of the units was basically always on my home field. If later in the game they needed to move off and my opponent had no uppy downy, they could sticky my home and then begin to move off, but most of the time they were screening my backfield, as it is something you still have to worry about in the game. The other 2 units were usually one of them staged up towards my expansion objective, and one of them was staged up towards the central objective, oftentimes taking advantage of the hidden mechanics, so they were standing in the open, however they were getting the hidden benefits, so it would allow them to move on to the central objectives or expansion objective really easily in turn 1. Traitora's Lance here, along with also having a pretty good attachment rule with what I'm trying to do here, also has a really good suite of stratagems for kind of what I'm going for here. Terror Shades here is really good. It's more healing to my knights on top of the stratagem for my Iconoclast, and also mortal wounds to my opponent, which there is a decent amount of in this list. You've got a stratagem here for a Feel No Pain in the fight phase. This list takes a lot of advantage of the second half of the stratagem, which gives you a 5-up Feel No Pain if the enemy unit is battle shocked. This combos really nicely with an enhancement I had on the Lancer that forces every enemy unit within engagement range at the start of the fight phase to take a battle shock. The idea here is essentially I have my own pseudo Catan. If you charge the Lancer, he's going to battle shock you at the start of the fight phase. He then gets a 5-up Feel No Pain. He then heals back in my command phase and everything like that. It's a lot of hoops to jump through, but it's kind of a cool combination when you can make it work. So let's quickly go over some of the games. This isn't going to be a super in-depth analysis because, well, I took no photos. You know, I hold my hands up, you know, as much as I can. I took no photos, and I'm very sorry about that. So round 1, I played into Space Wolves. This pairing was obviously released beforehand, so I had a bit more time to prep for this one. This list was basically infantry spam with quite a lot of Terminators in it, as well as the now old Librarius Conclave Sternguard unit. If there was one thing I could say about this event is that I wish beforehand I had played into somebody with the Sternguard unit in Librarius Conclave. I had heard speak of it online, but actually playing against it inside this event for the first time, this thing was nuts. In all honesty, I really like how I played this game, and I felt like I could have won if this Sternguard brick just simply was not there. I know that sounds like a complete crutch, but this unit, basically every single turn of the game, would top to bottom a knight. In turn 2 of the game, they killed my Lancer from full with no help from anyone else. Turn 3, they killed an Abominant. Turn 4, they killed another Abominant. Turn 5, they killed a War Dog. So much of my game was having to tiptoe around this Death Ball unit that has Assault and came down in a drop pod. I literally could not avoid it. So it was really, really hard to play this one. I never quite figured it out towards the end. My opponent was a really awesome guy. It was a really good game 1 actually. We kind of checked in on each other throughout the event. So this was actually a pretty good game 1 to start with. It ended up being a somewhat narrow loss to me. I kept it a lot closer than I thought I was going to. It was a bit of a sucker to start on a loss, but again, I didn't really have too much expectations, but really fun game. He had an awesome list. I think we ended up doing relatively similar at the event. So yeah, so lost to Space Wolves into round 2. The next game, I was playing into Space Marines. Again, 2 games in a row. It is what it is. This list was actually really quite interesting. So it was a gentleman who was playing essentially Imperial Fists. It was a lot of shooting. He had heavy bolter intercessors in a 10-man unit. There's also a 10-man unit of Terminators, things like Blade Guard, a Repulsor Executioner, Ballista's Dreadnought, things like that. This game ended up being a win for me, which I was really quite happy with. It ended up being a little bit of a blowout towards the end. Essentially how it went is I was able to get his Terminator unit into me in his turn 2. They failed to do much damage at all to my Knight Abominant, and I was kind of able to just stick the Terminator unit in one area of the board as I chipped it down over the next 2 turns and finish it off. He held his heavy bolter units quite far back, and what I was able to do is I was able to swing a lot of War Dogs around on the same board edge as them, and then in my go turn I was able to launch a lot of units into it and just pick it up all in a oneer. And from that point onwards I was able to kind of just clean up the game. But yeah, again, super lovely opponent and feeling pretty jazzed. I managed to get a win in round 2, so I'm already hitting my expectations and I've still got 3 more rounds to go, so feeling pretty good. Round 3 was into Space Marines. Again, at this point I was begging for my round 4 to not also be Space Marines. All 3 of my opponents were running Librarius Conclave as their 1DP detachment. Only rounds 1 and 3 had the Sternguard break that I was so worried about now. But I'm all Space Marine out, man. Don't make me play more Space Marines. This Space Marine list again was pretty cool. He was playing Salamanders in the Recon disposition. So he was able to advance an action or action and still shoot, which was really quite nice for these Flamer units. But yeah, I ended up actually managing to win this one. I found it kind of difficult to play this mission. Purge into Recon is one where you're kind of, he's trying to action on objectives, I'm trying to consecrate objectives by killing things and then ending the turn on top of them. So I was really trying to push hard back to not allow him to action at least 3 objectives, because that was really going to start snowballing his primary. However, I was also really struggling to get more than 2 objectives consecrated. So it was kind of this really interesting back and forth. My opponent played this one really quite passive. His Sternguard brick just didn't come out at all. I think they killed 1 knight the whole game because he just sat them behind a staging ruin. On the one hand, it was a good thing. I wasn't able to touch it at all with any of my knights at any point. He had it really screened out, both in front of it and behind it. But it also didn't do anything. When my Lancer got into the action, he simply wasn't able to shoot it because I had him completely on the other side of the board. So it just kind of sat there. It was threatening, yes, but if he had actually gotten involved in the game, I probably would have lost this one. This one was a bit of a closer win. Again, it kind of came down to secondaries and primary play at the end of the game, but yeah, really happy with how I played this one. So yeah, coming out of the end of day one on 2 wins and 1 loss, I was feeling amazing. I'd absolutely smashed my expectations, and kind of at the point of whatever happened in day 2, I didn't really care. At worst, I was going to finish 2 and 3, which I was incredibly happy with. Into day 2 and round 4, I was into Space Marines. I'm only kidding. I finally got a break, and my opponent was actually Astra Militarum. This list again was really cool. It was Steel Hammer Astra Militarum, which, if you don't know, is the one surrounding the Baneblades and all the Baneblade variants. When I was reading this list the night before, I was really quite worried. I played into Imperial Guard 4 times in the entire time I've played 40k since the middle of 10th edition, and every single opponent has had a Baneblade or Baneblade equivalent, and these things just mulch knights, and they're also really hard to kill back. Being T13 with 23 wounds, I believe, and a 4-up invuln from an Engine Seer, because there's always an Engine Seer, is really hard for knights to break through. A lot of our stuff caps out at strength 12 on stuff like the Carnivore or whatnot, and getting a Lancer into it without the Lancer getting just shot to death by the Baneblade is really hard. Come actual game time, my opponent, he starts in strategic reserves because he sees I have quite a few fast units in my army, and he doesn't want it getting tagged. Fair enough. He still has a lot of other things. He has a Leman Russ tank, as well as 2 Rogaldorn commanders, some Tauroxes, as well as some Castrican inside of those Tauroxes. So he still has a lot of stuff he can play the mission with. He can still kill me quite effectively. He can still score quite effectively without this. However, I still need to kind of push that advantage quite a bit. What ends up happening is I end up going first. I stage my Abominant quite aggressively. It's a little bit of bait. It's still close enough my deployment zone where it's near enough of my stuff. However, he can definitely reach it with, you know, his Tauroxes if he so wishes. What he does is he brings out 2 of his tanks and a Taurox full of Castrican all the way up to my side of the table really far to kill this Abominant. Ends up being a massive overcommitment. The Leman Russ doesn't even get to shoot, and suddenly 3 really big killing units are in my face. So, come my turn 2, I simply just all in what's in the middle of the table. It's such a huge chunk of his army, so I send in a Carnivore, the Lancer, as well as a shooting worth of Brigand, and the Abominant shooting, and managed to pick up all of it, both tanks, Castrican, and the Taurox. He sent an Engine Seer up with all of it as well. I believe the idea was to stage it up and also try and get the Baneblade in range of it when he rapid ingresses it, or whatever that stratagem from Steel Hammer is called. However, it ends up dying to an explosion from the Leman Russ, which was really quite funny. Funny for me, not for him, but ended up being actually quite good for me. What ends up happening is, in his turn 2, he brings in the Baneblade. It has no valid shooting target, so it sits there for a turn. And the rest of the game is me basically just hiding from the Baneblade and running around the board edges and scoring. And the rest of the game ends up basically just being me and my remaining units running around the opposite board edge and trying to just score as much points as possible. So yeah, I managed to win this one. Again, it was relatively close, but I felt like towards the end I was pretty comfortable I was going to win this one. But again, absolutely lovely opponent, had a great time. And again, bringing a Baneblade to an event like this guy knows what's up. So at this point, I'm 3-1, and I'm feeling just incredible. Again, I kept tempering my expectations. I felt like, I was like, oh man, if I go 4-1 at the Super Major, you know, I'm going to feel pretty good about it. But I wanted to just, you know, 3 wins, and I'm incredibly happy with that. Going 3-2 at this size of event is, you know, is fine with me. So I get to the table, round 5, me and my opponent are both 3-1, we both agree. Whatever happens here, we're both happy with our result. We weren't expecting very much, and so we just hope to have a good game. And a good game we had. This was against Subterranean Assault Tyranids playing Disruption. So a very weird army. I've struggled a lot with Chaos Knights into Tyranids before, especially now that my list is mostly about forcing a lot of Battle Shocks. And Tyranids, famously, I don't know if you know this, don't get Battle Shocked, like ever. I Battle Shocked maybe 2 things this entire game after forcing just so many. It's understandable, some armies just naturally counter one another, and I do think Tyranids is one of those for Chaos Knights. So what ends up happening in this one is he starts quite a lot of things off the board. I then have 20 cultists screening my entire backfield, so there's no space for anything to come down and start dropping tunnels in my deployment zone. I hunker down a lot towards my own expansion objective, so I can at least hold that. I have my Lancer staged on the right-hand side of the board to try and kind of put a bit of pressure on, but hopefully far enough away to where I believe nothing can really get to him. What ends up happening here is in turn 2, my opponent drops a tunnel, essentially, just outside my Lancer, and starts bringing all kinds of things in. He brings in Old One Eye, leading a unit. This thing is super killy, rerolls, decent shooting, stuff like that. He brings in a Norn Assimilator. He brings in the Swarm Lord, as well as a unit of the shooty las cannon bugs. It'll come to me. I'll put a picture here, these guys. And so, through a combination of the shooting and the melee, which, spoiler alert, the Swarm Lord and the Norn didn't even have to go into the Lancer, the fucking Old One Eye unit and the shooting alone just top to bottom him. It was basically to the wound, but yeah, that was something, man. From what happens here, essentially, is the entire flank with the Lancer collapses. I try and reinforce it with an Abominant and a lot more War Dogs. He's able to push back and kill all of it, and essentially my opponent, by the end of the game, pretty much tables me. There is one play at the very end that I essentially try and make. I've got an Abominant. I essentially creep all the way up the left-hand side of the board and onto my opponent's home. On this mission that we were playing, I would get, I believe, 10 points for holding his home at the end of the game. I thought there was maybe a way that would keep me in it, but he does manage to also kill that in the very end of Battle Round 5. So a loss here, beat relatively handily. It was close for turn 1, and from then on it was kind of just a downhill slope, so I definitely could have played this one better. I learned a lot, but like I say, absolutely over the moon. Still 3-2 by the end of the day. I was feeling pretty good. And yeah, I mean, that's pretty much it. So first Super Major, I loved it. I honestly, genuinely, from the bottom of my heart, had so much fun. Huge thank you to everybody I played, everyone I talked to at this event. Everyone was so friendly. You could really just go up to anyone and talk about anything. By the end of the day, I talked to most of the Chaos Knight players at the event. I was talking to people I knew from events I'd been to previously, people I never even met before, but they'd played friends of mine. It was just genuinely incredible. If you ever get the chance to go to an event like this, a UKTC event, I do highly recommend it. So yeah, after the shadow rounds and the finals had finally been played and everything like that, my final placing was 66th at the event overall. So really happy with that, yeah. Again, call back to the start of the video, I was technically the highest placing Chaos Knight player. As mentioned, there was only 5 of us. It was not a particularly high bracket to, beat. Nobody was playing anything super meta. Not that kind of at the time there was a meta for Chaos Knights. Obviously pre-Data Slate, people were dooming quite a lot about them. I think that's why nobody was really playing them. And obviously probably why none of us did all that well. But yeah, still, it's, ultimate bragging rights for me. It's going in the title, it's going in the thumbnail. I'm putting it on a t-shirt, I'm saving it, and I'm going to live on this forever. I got no award, I got no trophy, but, let me have this, man. But yeah, that's it. Hopefully this video was kind of short and quick. I have no idea, man. I talk forever when I record these things. If you enjoyed, make sure you let me know down below. Leave a like, leave a comment, subscribe. Let me know your thoughts. Did you go to the Edinburgh GT? Have you been playing Chaos Knights? I don't know. Do you like the trousers I'm wearing? Do you? But yeah, that's going to be everything for now, so I'll see you all later. Goodbye.